What's going on, guys? It is Dave again. I am back today doing a build for a guy who reached out to me and said he wanted a build done for music production. So after talking to him for a little bit, he did give me a budget of $1,800 pre-tax, and he specifically requested something with a high-core CPU, 32 gigs of RAM, and 2 terabytes of storage. So with that in mind, I managed to get him a Corsair Airflow 220T case, an AMD Ryzen 5900X. We're going to use an Asus ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard, and we're going to use 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro 3200 MHz DDR4. And for the storage, we have a Sabrent PCI Gen 4 2 terabyte NVMe. To cool the CPU, I did get a Corsair 240mm AIO, and he didn't specifically request a GPU of any type, but with running AMD, he has to have one. So after talking to him, I did let him know that I had a used GTX 1060 that I wasn't using anymore, and he was completely okay with that. So I'm gonna throw that into the build as well. And to power it all, I have a Corsair RM 750 watt power supply. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button since it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And with that said, let's dive in and let's build. Starting off with the motherboard, as usual, the B550 Asus ROG Strix is a solid choice when you're on a budget, and the extra features the X570 boards offer are not going to be used in this type of a build, so the B550 is definitely the way to go. One of the specific requests for this build was fast storage, and the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus 2 terabyte M.2 drive is definitely going to be fast enough to fulfill that requirement. I got extremely lucky when I scored the 5900X. I was actually at Micro Center just to get the motherboard and the RAM, and during checkout they told me that they just got a shipment in, so I got really lucky in being able to pick one of those up, and better yet, I got $20 off the motherboard since they were bundled together. I had plans on mounting the radiator at the top, but with how thick the VRM heatsink was, it was just a couple millimeters too thick. So plan B. I ended up mounting it to the front, and yes, the tubes are on the bottom. This case is shallow enough that I can get away with that. With the radiator in, I think it was a good time to get the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro RAM installed. Now, having RGB RAM was not something that was specifically requested, and I wasn't intentionally looking for it either, but Best Buy had a heck of a sale that I couldn't say no to. The 5900X is definitely a hot chip, and there is no question that I need every degree off I can possibly get. So using Thermal Grizzly Cryo Knot, I should be able to get at least a few more degrees Celsius off. With how many AMD builds I have done, I have gotten so much better at getting the CPU blocks on. I find it best to get both the hook screws on the block and tighten them on by 1 or 2 threads just enough to hold them on. Once you do that, get the top one on first and get that tightened down probably 5 or 6 threads, just enough so that it doesn't fall off the plastic hook. Then bring the CPU block down on the processor and get the bottom hook screw on the plastic hook, and then start tightening them both down until they are snug. With the CPU block on, the last component to get installed is the GTX 1060. Once that was in, I got everything wired up, installed Windows 10, and set up all the RGB lighting. And finally, I am done. This build turned out absolutely amazing. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I know that the owner is extremely happy with how it looks and runs. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.